Good morning and welcome. She doesn't want to go a walk because the weather's not very nice, so she's not happy. No, she's not bad. What I'm going to do in this episode is do some work on the Watson's camera that I rebuilt about 2-3 years ago. Jo's had the camera. She's taken about 100 photos with it, which is brilliant. And when I say photographs, they're on glass, about 15 inches square, big pieces of glass. So it's a special camera and I've got quite a lot to do. So all of this episode is going to be on the camera with a little bit of me telling you exactly what I've got to do and what I've got to go through. Because it's blooming hard work. It's hard work making, it's all very well doing furniture, but making an instrument where, you're right, Pep, making an instrument where daylight can't get in because it'll ruin the photograph, changes everything, changes everything. Let's show you what it is and we'll get into it. This is the camera. This is a clip from the first time it was used after I'd rebuilt it. And that's Jo on the right and Jason on the left. And it tilts and raises and falls and does all sorts of wonderful things. It's a beautiful camera. So I'm gluing these two pieces together. And rather than just gluing and cramping it on, I've actually cut with a knife all of the fibres that way and done a pretty good job at cutting all the fibres that way, which means that now, once the glue's on now, I'm not just clamping it down, I'm actually sliding the fibres back together that way so that it grips all the fibres mate and grip back together rather than just cramping on. And here's a small clamp just to hold it in place while the glue's going off. This is the plate holder. This holds the piece of glass and this door opens so you can put the piece of glass in there in the dark room. And what I'm doing is I'm going round with a feeler gauge, which is about 3/1000 of an inch, and I'm checking to see where it's catching because this door is catching. So I've got to make sure, and I think there's a little bit there where it's just catching a bit. And then there's another bit there which I've got to plane off. So I'm just trying to find these little bits that have probably moved with a bit of moisture because it has been stored in Jo's studio, which has been a bit damp because it's a new building. But there's a couple of places on there where it needs some taking off. So it looks like the door is dropping that way. And it's hitting here and there. So I'm going to plane a bit off here, a bit off there and a bit off here. Don't need to take much off there because, as you can see, that works there. Right, let's do that. In the vise with the sliding part of the mechanism just resting on that box. And now I can see where it needs to come off, and that's where it's rubbing. So that's where I've just got to run the plane over, take that bit off, and there's a bit there as well. This is my number 4 plane, and I'm just planing a very slight bevel to take those high spots off. So rather than taking the door off and planing the whole door down and undoing all the screws and removing it all, I'm able to plane up to that point and then use another plane. This is Stanley 98 or 99. And I can almost use it as a marking gauge. I'm holding it at a strange angle, but it's cutting at a slight bevel as well. So I'm trying to get the angle exactly right so that when I pull it across, it just takes off one shaving. That's all I want, which is about 1/1000 of an inch. Maybe a little bit more, but not much more. Looks good, doesn't it? Right. So I left it for a few days. What I did then was I cleaned it and I tried to get all the silver nitrate off, and the silver nitrate is the chemical that Jo uses to as part of the process, and it just goes all over all the woodwork and it really does make a mess. So I tried cleaning all that off and it wouldn't come off, so I was a bit annoyed that it wasn't coming out, a bit frustrated. And then I thought, well, I've just got to sand this down, and I've just got to sand it for, somebody's doing some work down there. And then I thought, I've just got to sand it through. So that's what I'm going to do today. Sand through and see how much of the silver nitrate that gets rid of. So hopefully we should have some bare timber and it should look pretty good. So let's see. Yeah, that's my workshop. These are the Stanley 98 and 99. They're specialist planes, but you know what? Once you've got them, they're brilliant. So useful. Worth having. Well worth having in the kit. And this is my Preston number 14. Brilliant plane. Feeler gauge back out again, and look, it works great down here. Just until it gets to this corner. And there's something just not quite right in this corner. So I'm going to have a quick look. Possibly just need to get a chisel in there. And just see if there's a proud part of there. I don't think it's on the door. It might be finish and muck in that corner there. We all have problems occasionally with focusing and motivation and all sorts. But yeah, my phone just didn't want to focus on this at all. Right, that's it. Sorted. So that works now. But there's still something not quite right down here, just there. We'll have a look at this, see if we can sort this out now. Here's the 98 or 99 plane again, and I'm just lifting it slightly so that the skate on the front doesn't go anywhere near the hinge. And I'll try it out, make sure it's okay, and then just a couple more bits to take off, and it's working really well. This saves stripping the whole thing down, and it's almost like using a chisel, but being able to control how thick the shaving is you're taking off. And then back to checking it again, and it was only when I checked it again, it was just a little bit. And I think what happens sometimes is when you put the black finish on, the black finish is quite a thick finish, so it might add a bit of gloop. It might have a bit of gloop to it that might just stop the feeler gauge working. So that could be a pain. And then I came down here and found that just by the hinge, the feeler gauge was just getting a bit tighter underneath where that hinge was. So I've tried the feeler gauge from the other side, and I can definitely feel there's something there. So now I'm just going to trim that little bit off. And I think sometimes you just have to get the chisel out and just see what it is. And it can be just the tiniest bit that's stopping it from working. But yeah, good to get a chisel on it and just tidy it up and make sure I'm really happy with it before we confirm whether it's working or not. One last try. There you go, fits under there, and it can be the tiniest amount just to stop the feeler gauge. Brilliant. Happy with that. Right, what's next? So spent about 10 minutes going around these brass fixings, took a couple of them off to get it sanded, and then went over with a card scraper just to remove the finish from near the brass hinges and other parts that I don't really want to remove. So yeah, cleaned all that up. So one of the things I've wanted to show you for a little while, and there might be a couple of clips on here already, I don't really know because I'm all over the place. But one of the things is actually, it's that picture there. So if you know that picture there, then you'll know something about what I'm going to show you. And that's this, the Great Wave. And these are photocopies of a print that I bought. And what I've got a student doing is something a little bit different. And what that is we've been planning out and working on this a little while now, is the Great Wave is going onto a plane. So yeah, and she's doing brilliant. So it's all drawn out on there. Most of it's drawn out there. We haven't done that boat yet, which will go round. There's a lot to do still. There's a lot that she's going to do, and there's some that I'm going to do. I want to make this comfortable for me to use, so I want to make it a little bit narrower there. There's things got to happen. I want to change some of this slightly, but yeah, she's doing really well. I mean, that's going to look amazing. She's brilliant, isn't she? She's brilliant. She's very good, and I love having her in the workshop, and she does a great job, and yeah, pushes me a bit, which is good. So it takes me out of my comfort zone a little bit, pushes me a bit, and that's just, I'm so pleased with that. It's just over the moon. What's next? Looking good.
You know when you just feel it?
Are you feeling it, man?
I'm feeling it now.
So we've just re-established the centre line to make sure that this goes either side of the centre line nicely. And yeah, it's looking good. Plenty of shavings. Good workout.
Look at that.
Whoa. Yeah.
At least I'm not dripping on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's looking good. And this coming from here down and round. You're coming down to this line, aren't you, in the centre? Only in the centre. I would take a measurement from here and I would copy it over there so that you've got a centre line for the leg. Mm-hmm. So maybe choose a point here.
Yeah,
come out at an angle and do the same angle over there. Yeah, yeah.
Because your legs are like.
It would be good to put some, and then if you bring the line down the front, then you can, if you get rid of the line, you can re-establish it. So maybe put a line on the back there, back of the other side of the centre line, put a line there, and then you take it out, and then you can easily put it back in again. That's what I'd do. It's looking good. Camera, back to it. Joe's recommended I use this. It's clear gloss finish. I'm just going to give it a wipe over with a cloth and some meths as a degrease to make sure. I've keyed it all up, it's all sanded down. So let me do that. And yes, I wear a mask. Should wear a mask, people. Doesn't matter how old you are or how long you've got away with it. Make sure you've got a mask on. So I've put some card now on the area that I don't. So I've masked that off with card. I want this to have a film on it. I've raised it up a little bit. And that's dried already. So, but I've got to get the first coat on here. Right, that's it, first coat done. I'll put another coat on in a couple of hours. So the other side is sprayed, the varnish is on and it's dried enough. This is a couple of days later. I've given this a light sanding, I've masked up all the brass parts that I don't want the varnish on, and I'm ready to give it a coat of varnish. And I'm having to do this outside because I've got visitors in the workshop and I haven't got good extraction to take away the fumes of the varnish. So I'm using the sun to help me see where I've been. It's looking a great colour. It's going to take another couple of coats at least to get this right. So I gave it another coat of varnish and allowed it to dry and denibbed it, and I'm just going over with some wax polish now, just in case there's any little bits that haven't got varnished. Leave the wax a little while and then wax off, just go over it all and buff it up. At the beginning of the last video you probably saw this. This is the plate holder for a camera that I made a long time ago, I don't know, a few years ago. Have a look in the videos, in the playlist, you'll find a playlist about the Watson camera, and I made pretty much all of this, and it does special things like this comes out and it folds. It folds like that. The wood folds, which is just, I'd never done it before, but it folds up and that can fold around. Anyhow, I've got this done now. Joe's coming to pick that up this week. I do need to look on the way we pass an axe, because that needs doing. I've got this thing and I'm a couple missing out of there, so I've got to sort something out with those. And this is as far as I got last week. So one of the first things I need to do is try and get this done. It's 12. I've got about an hour and a half, so if I pull my finger out, I might get this done. But I've got to get the kettle on first. I've got 3 screws to put that in there. I think I'll put that aside and I'll do that later. Tidy the bench off. Tidy that bench off. I might stay on there actually and let the 2 guys that are here today use those 2 benches. Yeah, that's what I'll do. That's the easiest thing to do. I can stay working on this, and then tonight I've got 3 people in, so I need all 3 benches clear. Looks alright. Finally put my stamp on it, finally put my mark on it. Feels pretty good. I'll put a bit of colour. Yeah, it looks good. Just working on the camera. Let me put you in here. And the reason I'm working on the camera is because Joe's going to pick it up in a couple of days. And the only thing I hadn't done was I hadn't put these screws back in. These screws stop this part of the camera sliding up. And then when that gets high enough, let me just bring you up here. Back on the camera, and I'll just put these 2 screws in. They go in these slots that are in this top piece of timber. You can just see it here. Come down, let me show you. See this little groove here? That's a screw can travel in there, but then it stops. The groove stops, so that these screws hit the stop, and then once they've hit the stop, you can't pull the top part, this, out any further, so it stops there, and then that folds at that point. Oh, let me show you. That folds at that point and folds all the way over, so it's pretty cool. And it folds all the way over, so look, that folds, and then that should, if those screws aren't catching, oh, there you go. They sometimes catch, especially when they've just been replaced. Push it down, pull it up. It's got to come up to that point, so that it can fold there. Fold all the way around and out the way. And that's sort of how it works. Anyway, I'll run this up and down a few times. I'll put some candle wax on, make sure it's okay, and this job's done. So it's going well, really. And don't forget, like, share, subscribe, all the rest. It's call to action. It's what we have to do. YouTube tells us we have to ask people. If we ask people, you guys will deliver. And typically, I've got to say, 97% of the people who watch this video don't subscribe or are not subscribers. And the other thing is, if I get 300 views, I'll be amazed. So there you go. Traditional camera stuff, it doesn't happen anymore. So that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm recording it, because you just don't see this sort of thing anymore.